Hi Stampers, this is Debbie Henderson from Debbie's Designs. I have a new project for you today and we're going to do a technique. I posted this card on my blog a couple weeks ago and I had a huge response because I used texture paste in the background, and it's actually a paste that I made myself with a recipe, and a lot of you guys asked if I do a video to show how to use it. So this is the card that was on my blog. This is another one that I made using the dots instead of the hexagons. And we're actually going to make a third card using a different stencil. So first, let me show you how I made my texture paste. I'm keeping it in just a plastic container. Make sure that it's got a tight seal on it. And you'll see on the inside, I'll use a spoon here, it's almost like a glue, and I actually keep the recipe on the bottom, and I'll list it at the end of my blog. But you're going to need cornstarch, and I use the Argo cornstarch. You're also going to need school glue, which Elmer's is what I used for my, and I know there's some cheaper versions out there, and some white acrylic paint. And then once you mix all three of these ingredients together, you just add water to get it to the texture that you want. Now you'll see I've had this in here for probably about 2 months and it's still really thick and sticky. I don't know at this point if eventually I'll have to add more water to thin it out, but right now I've had it for a couple months and it's still very workable. So let me show you what else we're using for supplies today. So for cardstock, let me move these over. We're going to use Tip Top Taupe, 11 inches by 4 1/4 inches, scored at 5 1/2 in the center and folded. Chocolate chip, 5 1/4 by 4 inches. Whisper white, 5 inches by 3 3/4 inches. And you're going to need a scrap of the Tip Top Taupe to stamp the butterflies and cut them out. For ink colors, we're going to use chocolate chip, and I'm going to mix it up a little bit today by using Cucumber Crush. You're also going to need a stamping sponge for the Cucumber Crush color. What I do with my sponges is I cut them in 4 pieces. Some people even cut them smaller into 8 pieces. And then I use the decorative label punch, fold it in half and staple it so I know what color my sponge is when I'm looking for it. We're also going to use white perfect accents for the embellishments, and I keep mine in a clear case. I'm going to show you how to color those today because you'll notice on my card that they're brown, so I'll be showing you how to do that. So you're going to need a brown Sharpie marker, permanent marker. We're going to need the Elegant Butterfly Punch. And on the card that I made with the beehives, I used the hexagon die, a framelits die, as my stencil. But we're not going to use that today, but I just wanted to show you what I used in case you want to replicate that card. We're actually going to use the Happy Patterns decorative masks on the card that we're going to make together. On this card, I used the Dots and Stripes mask, which is a little bit different. So I just want to give you a little bit of variation so you'll know that you can use different types of stencils to use the texture paste on. We're also going to need stamping dimensionals, the bone folder. So the first thing I'm going to show you is coloring the white perfect accent using a permanent marker. And all I normally do is just rub the marker all over and then go around it making a circle. And sometimes I even put 2 layers of color as they dry. And these do dry pretty quickly, but I just wanted to have them done so they'll be ready for us to use. So you can see how they still remain shiny. So you could actually color these any color of your choice. Now I'm going to bring in a tissue just so I can put my white layer, and I'm going to lay the mask over my white layer. Now what I've done with my texture paste, I did not have an old credit card on hand that I could use, so I took a couple window sheets and just cut them the size of a credit card and glued them together. If you can find something that's just rigid enough so you can grab some of the paste like this, and then all you're going to do is spread. And I'm not going to be careful about making sure I have the whole cardstock piece, because it kind of looks neat to just have part of it done. So I'm just going to finish wiping that off. And then I'm going to take the corner of the mask and just pull. Let me set this aside so I don't get messy. And if you'll notice, I'll try to lift this up. You can see how pretty that is. Now we're going to let this dry. So I'm going to stop the camera while this is drying, and it's going to take about a half hour. So I'm just going to let it sit, and I'll be back to finish the video when this is all dry. Hello, I'm back. Before we get moving, I wanted to show you in the catalog what I used for the stenciling. I actually used the image right here in the corner, and those are called the happy patterns. There's actually four stencils in this pack. And then we also have the hearts and stars in another pack, and the dots and stripes. So, and these are all acrylic. And as you see, I've removed all the paste. All I did was run it through a faucet of running water, and I just rubbed as it went through, and the water took everything off. So all you have to do is wipe with a paper towel. Now I've let this dry about 15 minutes, so it really dries rather quickly. So now I'm going to bring in my Cucumber Crush ink and my sponge. And all I'm going to do is add color, and as you can see, it just rubs right against the texture paste. It does color the texture paste. And what I usually do is I sponge in different areas, and I add more ink. So you'll see some lighter areas and some darker areas. Okay, I'm pretty happy with the way that looks. So I'll give you a little close up here. Looks pretty neat, and you can see the texture when I hold it sideways. So now let's finish up the card. Now on this one, I did notice that I didn't leave enough of a blank spot on the bottom to stamp my sentiment. So I'll bring in a separate piece of Whisper White and the chocolate chip ink. And what we'll do is we'll add the decorative label punch in the mix, and we'll just cut it out and layer it instead of having it stamped directly on that layer. So there's my sentiment. And I'm going to cut that out. And now what we're going to do is stamp 2 butterflies on the scrap piece of Tip Top Taupe. And we'll cut those out with the Elegant Butterfly Punch. So now we have all of our pieces. Let me move my ink aside. So let's glue our layers. So I'm going to glue the chocolate chip layer to the Tip Top Taupe layer. And for the stenciled layer, I'm going to actually glue that in place with Stampin' Dimensionals because I wanted some height. So I'm going to lay down 8 Stampin' Dimensionals. Remove the backings, and fingernails do help when removing these. Okay, so I've got all of my backings removed. Going to layer that over my chocolate chip layer. I do have a little bit of paste here sticking out. I think I'll grab a pair of scissors just to snip that. Only because I'm anal like that. Okay, that's all nice and even. So now I'm going to glue the sentiment to this layer. Maybe I'll put him higher so that it'll show up against the green. And then we'll add stamping dimensionals to each butterfly. I'll add one here at the top. Whoops, that's covering one of the letters. So one at the top. And this one will be a little further down. And now all that's left is to add our colored white accents. Let me see, I'll put one here. And these two are a little bit smaller. I'm just trying to decide where I want them. Let me try one there. And one up here. And there you have it. 3 different cards with 3 different stencils for 3 different looks. I hope you liked my tutorial for today. If you have any questions, make sure you leave a message on my video, or you can email me. I'll have all my information at the end of the video, and I will also have a listing of all the supplies I used, plus the recipe for the texture paste. Have a good day, and thanks for stopping in.